So not that long ago at the butcher, I saw that they had a sub 10-pound full brisket, a full packer brisket. And I rarely see those. Usually they're 13 or more. So I grabbed it. But what I wanted was to turn this into something a little different. So I needed the butcher to separate the point from the flat. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to massacre it. So here it is. I've got the flat and the point, and we're going to turn these into brisket ribs. So what are brisket ribs? Well, have you ever had country style pork ribs? That is basically a pork butt, which is cut across and sectioned into things that are ribs. I decided I'm going to do that with this brisket. Now the butcher trimmed it up a bit, took some of the excess fat off. I'm not going to do any more. This is fine for me. We're going to be smoking these ribs up just like we would a normal brisket. And you can see here on the point a little bit of the fat still stayed attached to this fat part there. That is fine. So now my choice here is how to cut this. Now if I was going to go directly across the grain here, it would be like this. You can see the grain is running this way on the flat. Flat and the point generally run in opposite directions. Well, on this, I don't want to make these ribs this way because I'm going to end up with some really short ones. This would be the better way to go, and that's what I'm going to do. And you can see on this other side, there is a little bit of fat left that's been trimmed down, and right here, some of the bare spot where the point was taken off. So what I want to do is I'm just going to kind of pick my rib thickness and start going across. This is about the thickness that I see country style pork ribs, so I'm going to try mimicking that with these brisket ribs. Just like that. One of the nice things about this is we're going to be able to get seasoning all around these hunks of meat. And these are going to be going on the smoker tomorrow. I'm going to season them up tonight here in just a minute, and they'll soak in that seasoning overnight. So some of these ribs will be thinner as we get close to the end, but that's all right. Just like a brisket, some parts are thicker than others. And I think this last one we'll just sort of leave as a nice sort of flappy rib. All right, let's get our point over here. Now you can see on the point, this is that little part of the flat, grain this way, but the grain on the point is running this way. You can see this right here. Here are the ends of the muscle fibers. So we are going to be able to go directly across here. And there we go. We have our point brisket ribs and our flat brisket ribs. Let's get these seasoned up. Now we've got our point brisket ribs over here and our flat brisket ribs over on this side. They're probably going to get mixed up as we smoke them, and that's going to be fine. Now the seasoning I'm going to be using is my smoky sweet rub. I'll put a link in the video description to a video on how to make it. Super simple, but I love this stuff. So we're just going to start getting a coating on here. Don't really need a binder on here. There's a good amount of moisture. That's looking good. Now what I want to do is get these up off this tray. So I'm going to put a rack under them so that as they're sitting in the refrigerator, if there's any juices coming off, they don't sit in that. Generally, I'll try and keep these fat side down on here. That's how I'm going to smoke them, fat side down. That's how I like to do it. Flappy rib at this end. All right, this is going to go in the refrigerator overnight, and tomorrow I'll see you out at the grill.
While the Lone Star Grill's offset is fired up, I'm burning post oak today, and I've got about a half a gallon of water in the cook chamber. You can put water right in the bottom of the cook chamber in this pit. My target temp today is 250 to 275 degrees, and our brisket ribs have been soaking in that seasoning overnight. Let's go ahead and get them on. Not quite sure how I'm going to arrange these yet. We'll move it around if we need to. All right, let's close the lid. Let's get smoking. We'll come back in about an hour, check these, see if we need to spritz some, see how they're doing. All right, we're at the 1 hour mark now, and we're gonna go ahead and check these, see if we need to spritz them. But one thing I wanna kind of cover here is I get questions a lot about how do you keep your temperature so perfect all the time? Well, I mean, part of it's you just get experience with whatever you're cooking on and how it behaves and your vent settings, and you just get used to it. But the temp isn't always perfect. There was a while ago that it was just shooting up past 300. I adjusted the intake vents on this. That's how I usually do it on this cooker. I usually leave the exhaust vent alone. Comes back down to temp within about 10 minutes. It's not always perfect. You got to adjust. So let's go ahead and check our brisket ribs. Starting to get that nice color on them, but definitely looking a little dry. So we're going to go ahead and spritz. And I'm just using plain water spritz today. All right, let's get this closed up. Let these keep smoking. I'm going to come back in an hour and check them again. At some point, we will be wrapping them, actually putting them in a large foil pan with just a little bit of moisture, sealing that with foil, and that will serve as our wrap today. I want to get that color a little bit closer to what I like, so I think we're going to go at least 2 hours just out on the grill like this. At the 2 hour mark, I will do a little probe for tenderness, even though it's not going to be tender at that point. I want to get a feel of it, and we'll also see what the internal temperature is too, even though that's really not as important as the tenderness. So I'll see you back here in about an hour when we take a look at these brisket ribs. All right, we're at the 2 hour mark. Let's go ahead and check our brisket ribs. I'm mostly concerned about the color and how they're looking, but like I said, I do want to do a probe test for tenderness. Well, just kind of curiosity, see the temp on some of them. That color's looking like I want it to look. So I'm just going to check this one right here. Yeah, it's good resistance still, and let's just see the internal temp on there. If you can see, we're at about 155, so pretty close to the stall, at the stall. This one back here is temping around the same 155. So the color is looking good. It's right where I want it to be. And we're right about at that stall temp range. So I'm going to wrap these. First thing I want to do is just sort of slide these over to the firebox side of the cooker for a moment. Instead of foil pan in here, it's actually double foil pan. Get my brisket ribs in here. Gonna add some water, just our spritzing liquid. That's probably about a cup. Get this covered up with foil. All right, I'm gonna get this closed up and we'll come back in 2 hours and check these. All right, we've been in the foil for 2 hours now. Let's go ahead and open it up, check our tenderness. See how we're feeling? Feeling good. We're at about 197, 98 degrees there. These are feeling pretty good. That one's showing 196 right there. But it's the tenderness that I'm interested in. And these are feeling pretty good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let these go for about 30 more minutes. I'm gonna cover it back up and just let them go for 30 minutes. Then I'm gonna take them off, take them inside, just put them in the oven that's off and let them rest for about an hour. These don't need to rest for a longer time like a whole brisket because there's not a lot of thermal mass there holding that heat in. So about an hour should be good on these. And after that, we will have a taste. The next place I'll see you is inside when we're ready to taste.
All right, here we are. I've got a plate full of our brisket ribs. They've been resting. I actually let them go 90 minutes. So I want to point out the key here when you're making, whether it's brisket or these sort of brisket ribs or anything like this, these large cuts of meat, is time doesn't matter. The ultimate internal temperature isn't really the final determining factor. It's when they're tender to your liking. That tenderness usually happens somewhere above 200 degrees, but you've got to probe and check, and these were good when I let them start resting. So now all that's left to do is to pick one and dive in. Let's see. I think I might go with this piece right here because that is a piece of the point. Now, even though these are ribs and I'm going to pick it up and eat it, I want to slice into it first. Oh yeah, we got a nice little smoke ring there. And I'll just go to town on this like I would a rib. Here we go. really good smoke flavor, which doesn't surprise me because more of the meat is exposed to direct contact with the smoke as opposed to if you did a whole brisket. Any rub you want to use on this is fine, but I really like that rub of mine, that smoky sweet rub. This is one of the things I enjoy about cooking is doing something a little different, having a little fun with something that's ordinary, and the taste makes this worth it.